Why do you think there's so many Christian men in the world today that on the outside appear to have it all, success, status, relationships, family, yet on the inside they're struggling with this emptiness?
Do you think there's that many?
I do. Do you not?
I'd like to see more.
You'd like to see more?
I'd like to see more Christians, more kings out in the marketplace, you know? Why do I think this is happening?
Well, let me come back at you there then, if we can, because are you saying you want to see more Christian men
succeeding,
empty inside, or more Christian men
succeeding?
Succeeding?
Yes.
Okay. So you think that there's a void of successful Christian men in the market today?
I think that there's a void of legit kings.
Okay.
What's
a king?
That it may just be another term for like a real Christian, like someone who's not just playing the game.
Okay.
They're not just doing the go to church, do checking the boxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like real, they're those rare men that you meet that are like, that is a Jesus dude right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Powerful.
Why are so many Christian men playing the game? Because I think if you were to walk into most churches these days and ask men how they're doing, they're going to tell you they're going okay. I think if you were to survey a lot of them, the truth wouldn't come out. So there's this mask that these men are wearing.
Yeah.
Why?
Part of the problem could be the American church system. To me, it's all a little bit of a game in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know, you show up on Sunday, hi, how you doing? It's just kind of part of the overall, it's not central.
Mm-hmm.
The church isn't central to most people's lives.
Okay.
Jesus is just like one of the things that they do. And so I think what happens is that's not how the game works. That's not how the kingdom works. So it takes a crisis to move Christ from the peripheral into the center, right?
Mm-hmm. Takes a crisis to move Christ from the peripheral.
Wow, that's a little bit of that's a good one.
Yeah.
Crisis creates community. It creates Christ, period, if you think about it.
And is that message not being shared universally throughout the church?
Man, honestly, I just don't know, because I'm personally, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of organized religion.
Okay.
It's just not me. It's I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do it for me. I haven't found what I'm looking for in the American church.
Yeah. I don't think this conversation where I wanted to go is in pedestalizing organized religion. I think it serves a place in some people's lives. Sure. As I told you the other day, it serves a role in my life as well. What I want to get to is I want to speak to the heart of the man that is out there, that is showing up on Sunday and is wearing the facade. He's putting, the nice pants on, checkered shirt, buttoned up, tucked in, and is telling everybody that his life is going amazing. And then he goes home and yells at his wife, doesn't lead his kids, and then drowns himself in vices and pleasures. And I want to speak to that guy. So we don't have to, like I said, highlight and pedestalize the church, because I don't think that's what
he probably does. That guy probably does not have a legit father in his life.
Okay.
In terms of, the Apostle Paul said, you have many children, you don't have many fathers.
Yeah.
So he probably does not have a strong father figure mentor. And he almost certainly does not have real community.
Yeah.
Where he just can't get away with the stuff that he's getting away with. It's impossible.
Okay. So fatherlessness.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So fatherlessness is at the root of it. And when you say a legit father, are you speaking
like a spiritual father?
A spiritual father.
I've had the same spiritual father for 25 years that I've met with at least once a week.
Okay.
And just brought all my questions to him about absolutely everything about life. And he's just spoken into me and it's just been a huge part of my journey. I don't know how you can really do it without that, honestly.
Yeah. And we'll get to kind of where you were in your journey, and what kind of brought all this into light for you. But I want to circle back to Cease statement, because I think one thing that I've been on for the last 5.5, 6 years is trying to catch the guy before the crisis.
Yeah.
I've been
One,
is it possible?
I would like to think it is, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I don't know, man. The crisis moves us from developmental stage to developmental stage. There's two main ones that we have to deal with, and then there's just lots of little ones. And it's all a process of the guy who's checking all the things off the list and quietly at home is in despair and is, the man you mentioned, the successful Christian.
The guy that's succeeding on the outside, maybe not even uber successful, right? But he followed the world's plan,
He probably means well, right?
Yeah.
But he's also unknowingly wearing 10 different masks, believing 1,000 different lies, thinking he's something when he's nothing, right? If anyone thinks he's something when he's nothing, that man deceives himself.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm not sure. I think we can limit like the collateral damage, but Christ died on the cross and calls us to a life of a lot of suffering for a reason. There's no real growth without the cross, right? When Christ died on the cross, that mask that we're all wearing, that is specifically what he took with him.
Yeah.
That is sin. For this we know, when Christ died, our old self died with him. That old self is the problem. That is the issue. You're asking me, what is the problem? What's keeping these guys? It's specifically that. All the lies they're believing, this sin nature, right? And there's nothing technically that can be done about that except for an application of the cross. And that typically involves some type of spectacular, failure or divine intervention.
Yeah.
It just usually involves a lot of pain. I think we can minimize the damage.
Yeah.
I think community and coaches minimizes the fallout.
No, I agree. 100%. And
it's the closest thing to an insurance policy as a high level, high performing Christian who is also high risk. Right? Coaching and community and accountability is the closest thing to like an insurance policy on yourself.
Yeah.
And I think all high achievers should keep that, should think that way. I think if we all kind of kept in mind, you know what, that guy over there that just lost everything, that guy over there that just had an affair, and that guy over there that and his whole life fell apart, that guy that just got exposed for his, addiction and his, fallout with his partners because he wasn't doing business. That could be me.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a level of humility. But I always kind of circle back. When I have these conversations, I'm always just like, I run up against the same thing in all of them. And that is the concept of grace. Because it's like, we can say all this stuff. It's like, okay, you have to have an element of humility and you have to have that. But God's in control of this whole story, right? He's in control of my journey, your journey. He's scripting the whole thing out, right? The days of our life were written in the pages of God's book before there was one single one of them, right? Yeah. So how is that guy going to become humble and self-aware enough to say, okay, let me just see this. Yes, that could be me too. Just not many guys are going to do that, man. Most guys who are up here, like I used to be, like you used to be, I don't know your full story, but I mean, I was making $2 million a year, 5 different businesses, while giving 25% of my money away building 40,000 churches in Cuba and community, leading worship at a church. And I still lost absolutely everything, made all the worst mistakes, right? I don't think I ever stopped to think that it was even a remote possibility that I could ever do any of the things I did. Not once. If somebody would have told me that, I would have said, "Well, you haven't done the work. You don't know the work that I put in 25 years of reading the Bible, memorizing the Bible, entire books, the entire Sermon on the Mount, the entire book of Philippians. Big deal, man. Helping people, giving money away, doing all the right things. God is holding us up in his hand, and he's carrying us along through life, right? And whether we stand or fall, it's not up to us. It's up to him. Don't judge the servant of another. What's that verse? It's like 1 Corinthians. God is able to make him stand. Make him stand. God makes us stand. But every once in a while, and this is something, if you can show me one single person on the planet under the age of 70 that has said what I'm about to say, I want to see it. God is in control of whether this is going to be controversial, whether we sin or don't sin. And there are times, and I would put myself as Exhibit A of one of those times, where God is carrying us along by his grace. We're doing all these deeds that he prepared beforehand for us to walk in, right? We're working out what he's worked into us. He's working in us to will and to do according to his good pleasure, right? But what's the worst sin of absolutely anything? What's the worst thing anyone could possibly do? The most dangerous sin.
Yeah, you're going to stun me on this one.
It's the one that blinds all these Christians we're talking about. It's the one that blinds them to themselves. It's the sin that would keep them from ever thinking it would be possible that they could end up like that guy or that guy. It's pride, bro.
Pride.
And so the well-meaning Christian who is doing good and is succeeding and needs to be self-aware enough to know that up here does not last forever. It doesn't. This is my personal observation, but also asking a lot of super smart and old and wise mentors and pastors, and very rare cases people stay up here. High achievers, you're looking at like three major, I mean, statistically speaking, you're looking at 3 bankruptcies total for multimillionaires. So just from a financial perspective, if you think you're up here and you're going to stay up here, dude, you're delusional.
Yeah.
Like, prepare, be smart, put in all the backstops that you can think of, the same way you do for your investing, the same way you do for your businesses, right? Do that same thing for your spiritual life. Put in some backstops. Like, okay, if I was starting to go down the wrong road, what could I do to like make sure? But see, that's the thing. Nobody's self-aware enough to think like that. And it's pride. Pride is the problem. And so what happens is God's carrying us along. And every once in a while, he is going to release that hand of grace. And he's going to show you who you really are.